cloud. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the work community meeting for April 5th, 2022. We'll go ahead and get started talking about the 1.9 release. Let me see if I can share my screen with the agenda. All right. There we go. I guess the first few comments on the 1.8 release. So we did have the 1.8 release last Thursday, the 31st, and 1.8.9. I'm thinking we can probably move to a 3 or 4 week cadence. So the last one was 3 weeks apart. It has been 4 or 5 months since the 1.8 release. I think we're getting pretty stable there. Not too many backports. So maybe April 21st, we'll shoot for that for the next one, unless there's anything that is more urgent that comes up. I don't think there was anything in the board that was interesting to look at, but let me just double check. Yeah, these two issues don't even seem like 1.8. We could probably just move them out to 1.9. I'll take another look at those, but yeah, nothing too blocking there unless anybody else wanted to bring something up. All right, so 1.9 will be the interesting topic for today. Ceph Quincy was targeted for last Thursday, but there is a blocking issue. I forget what it was, some Cephfs driver or mount issue, I think. So hopefully that'll be resolved soon and we'll have the release out. We currently do have the 17.1 release out, which we are testing against in our CI. But just to make sure we're good with the final release, I think it'd be good to wait a few more days for the Quincy release to be out before we release. So 1.9, our beta release the branch was created and all that, and the release is out. I haven't heard any feedback on it yet. It is out there for testing. And then so we were targeting this Thursday in 2 days, and I'm thinking, or the proposal is to move it out to next Tuesday, the 12th, just to give Quincy a little bit more time and us to respond to it. So any concerns with waiting till next Tuesday, or should we go ahead and make that the plan? Going once, going twice. All right, I'm gonna change this to the 12th.
That sounds good to me. I think, yeah, I mean, the alternative is we release like Friday, which seems, concerning. Releasing on Friday isn't always the best idea, especially for a major release. And yeah, I think, you can say similar things for Monday. I think everyone's playing catch up on Monday most of the time.
Yep. Tuesday is just a nice Tuesday, or midweek is really a good time for a release. So, any other comments on the target date? All good to go. Okay, let me bring up the project board. I put a few issues or PRs in the blocking release column. Most of them aren't strictly blocking, but just want to make sure we're tracking anything we're really considering that we'd like to get into the release. So just to talk through these real quick. So the upgrade guide, of course, we need, and Blaine, you said you'd work on that one. I opened an issue just to track it here on the board.
Yeah, that sounds good. I can drag that over to in progress today. I'll start on that.
Yeah, sounds good. And I guess these issues in the blocking release column, we can treat them specially and leave them in this column until they're closed, just so we can see what is left to be merged before we release.
Gotcha.
The next one I've got is FCSI 3.6 is, I believe I saw a comment from Humble that 3.6 is released, but I haven't seen a PR yet to pick it up in Rook. So I'll ping Madhu to see if we can get that now, or if there's anything else they were waiting on before that. There's CSI encryption support on a per PV encryption. I think that's pretty close, and it's in final review. I needed to take another look at that PR to see if it's actually ready. But that's, yeah, that may perfectly be fine to come in the patch release. It's not technically blocked. And then the admission controller starting it by default without any script. This will be a really nice to have because we can finally get the admission controller as long as the cert manager is installed. And if the cert manager isn't there, we'll just say it's optional. We won't configure it, but this will be good to finally have an admission controller that's easier to start instead of with a separate script.
Mm-hmm.
That's in final review too. Yeah. So are there any other issues we should consider in the blocking release column? Features that would be really nice to have to include in the blog. The NFS driver integration, actually, I was thinking we might talk about that in the blog, even if it's not in the release. I feel like people don't seem to notice very often if things are actually in the release, they just want to see the blog. So,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, the work on creating an NFS export provisioner is pretty near completion. I think it will require CSI 3.6. So in some ways that 3.6 integration is a prerequisite for NFS anyway, and the NFS will be in alpha state for at least for Rook 1.9, probably. Yeah, I guess we'll see how the work goes on that, whether we think it's ready for GA or perhaps, just saying at least the API kind of components of this are stable in 1.10. But there's time until then.
Yep. There aren't any CRs that are actually alpha, like alpha v1, right? In the version scheme, or
yeah, I think it's more just things around just kind of how things will work in general.
Right. Yeah, the breaking changes might come.
Yeah, I don't anticipate anything really major, but there's definitely the possibility that the kind of components themselves might have to be connected in kind of a different order. Like maybe a storage class will have to be changed, and we potentially won't be able to migrate PVs or PVCs from that point. I guess those are like the concerns that I would have for, what might change between when we can finally consider the overall design GA. It's not really about kind of the configuration bits in Rook.
Right. Okay. As far as the wording and the documentation, I think what we've done in the past is just call it experimental, so we don't have to use any alpha keywords in
that sounds good.
CRDs,
and then we're also not conflating any terms with what people expect CRDs to use or Kubernetes resources to use. We'll just say this is experimental. It can change, from this release to the next release. It can change, so don't assume it's going to be the same while we figure out what the best way to actually do all the integration is.
Yep.
And I also need to write that doc.
Okay, so you're writing the documentation, not Rakshit, or?
I mean, at any rate, I do, even if Rakshit adds a significant amount of documentation, I definitely want to have some time to clean it up.
Yeah. Just standardize it with the upstream docs. Sounds
yeah, good. And then I think there may be some kind of subtle changes to the documentation we have now because of this, or there potentially could be. So I just want to make sure it's like nice and polished across the docs more broadly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess like we were talking about in the previous huddle about being clear how it relates to our Rook NFS operator, and so people know or have a clear idea the difference between them. Or if we, and is this a good time to fully deprecate the Rook NFS operator, or since it's not very well supported anyway? So yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts around that or other features for the release?
Nope.
All right. And I don't think there's anything else in the to-do column that really needs to be considered for the blocking the release. It's just kind of the standard, yep, it's in here, it'd be nice to do in the 1.9 time frame or patch releases.
Yeah, I saw a task in there about multi-site realm. So I've been chatting with Ali Meridia more the past few weeks about multi-site. I think he's going to be, he has gone through, I think he said 4 multi-site issues and triaged them from like his view. And he's going to be kind of working on those and also updating some docs about multi-site. So I guess that's just to say, like, I think multi-site has not really had a lot of things changing in the past like year or so, but I think we can expect some more updates coming in the next, 3 months or so, that will probably get backported to 1.9, and we'll see whether they make sense to backport to 1.8 as well, or not.
Yep. Sounds good. Okay. That's all for the 1.9 board then. I guess on the agenda items, I just have a carryover from last time that I still need to follow up on, where in Quincy, the built-in pool device health metrics was renamed to dot manager. And with the upgrade guide, I guess I just want to make sure that's tested there to make sure we don't need anything else special, or if Ceph just takes care of that itself during the upgrade.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, because I've like started thinking about the upgrade guide a little bit. So I don't think Rook does any handling to internally change its like idea of device health metrics, like being the name of a pool, like automatically switching to .mgr. I hope we don't need something like that. That would be, yeah, just the special Ceph upgrade conditions like that are annoying. I'm hoping we can just create a new pool. Like, it's like, if you have a device health metrics pool, just create a new one for the manager, and then you can delete the old one after the upgrade. Does that sound like a good upgrade flow? If that is if that's a way that we can get it done.
I'm seeing it as you said. Like, I'm hoping that Ceph simply automatically renames the pool.
And that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. It seems kind of like a breaking change. I think those, you could say it like that, if they don't like rename it or something. Maybe for other applications that use that pool, but it was exclusive to the manager, as far as I know, wasn't it? So
yeah, and I guess to clarify where the upgrade I think will be affected, I think so in our default installs, Ceph just creates that pool and Rook never touches it. But in our 1.8 release, we had this feature which allows you to actually like set the replicas and other config on that pool, specifically the built-in pools. And if they're creating that CR, so during the upgrade, Ceph will rename the pool, but then Rook might just create the old pool again. I think that may be the only side effect, unless you rename the CR. So the upgrade guide may just need an instruction to update the name of the CR. so that there's not that we don't end up with two pools after the upgrade. But I think that might be the worst side effect. You get an
Yeah.
extra pool on accident.
Right.
At least it's not too big normally, that pool.
Yeah,
So
it's not common though to have that CR, or that people usually don't care about it.
Yeah. I think as long as there's not any kind of weirdness where Ceph, like assuming, like I think the worst case is that Ceph does like copy the device health metrics pool to .mgr, but doesn't copy the pool settings, so resets it back to defaults. I think that would be the worst possible case for Rook upgrades.
Right. And I guess if they're using that pool CR to configure it, then Rook should reset them again to what they want. So hopefully, yeah. I mean, fundamentally, though, it won't affect many people because it's not in the default examples to create that CR.
Yeah.
Okay. And that brings us to the end of the official agenda for today. Is there anything else anybody want to bring up? Or Alexander, do you want to have an official introduction as a part of a new company, or?
Well, I've basically switched jobs. Yeah, well, I'm now a founding engineer of Core Technologies, and well, I can't necessarily say more than that we'll do something with Rook, and well, I think I should keep it at that for now, and
Yeah.
finally get the website up and running with the actual content. Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
sounds good. More to come, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
It also looks like we have
Hello.
Jan join. Yeah.
Yes, hello, Jan. We were just finishing up on the agenda. Did you want
Yeah,
to bring a
I
topic up?
guess I might try to propose to add some discussion topics. I still have some questions regarding Golang and used language features for Rook. Any intersections with a library called JSON-iterator is one question. Another question is about reflection, as actually is the reflect package. And probably, and I got one recurrent, probably a recurrent topic related to RISC-V. I got some access. For the purpose of the Go LLVM project from Chinese people. There is an option to remotely operate some boards. I didn't check yet, but I just only had some. They provided an account, so but I didn't check yet. And and it wasn't about Rook generally, but there is some possibility to use some few RISC-V boards to run some concrete tests out there. Plus, there is some support for Kubernetes and Docker on RISC-V. So I thought it might be sort of like an option to check out about potential porting of maybe if there would be an interest to port Rook to RISC-V and to see which technological issues might be there. And the hardware people can propose maybe some initiatives, but they have to understand what is ported generally. So I have here. So this is what I wanted to like maybe to propose to discuss. So like that.
Yeah, for the RISC-V support, what would it take to get machines available to add to the CI so we can run them with GitHub Actions? I think, anytime we have a new platform, that's the biggest risk, is just being able to, if we can add it to the CI, we know it's tested, we know it's supported. If we're not able to add it to the CI, then it's just hard to say it's supported.
Generally speaking, they ask about supported distro, so you can assume any officially supported Linux distribution. It might be Ubuntu, might be Fedora, it might be, you can check out about OpenSUSE, I guess. As for other Linux distributions, I have some concerns, especially some non-glibc based ones. So not sure about Alpine on RISC-V yet, at least yet. But glibc based distributions like, for instance, Ubuntu might be an option. So since there is so at least I can check the distro, but they asked about the distribution. I said I use Ubuntu, so they seems to provide Ubuntu, so I can try to ask them if it's possible, if they approve it, if they would approve it. I might try to deploy what you would propose. For instance, so you can propose Chinese engineers to deploy something, they can try to have some fun to do that on their own. So you're providing related tools for the CI, and it might be possible to, like, there are two sub options, and you can possibly add it to your to the agenda. One option is to build everything on RISC-V, and then you are running all the tests, integration tests, and any other tests on the board itself. Another sub option is to cross-compile on some, say, powerful x86_64 server, or maybe that's a powerful ARM server. You can try to build stuff like something to go perform in parallel, compile, and you can link. And then you can deploy everything, say, then you are preparing building Docker images and everything to run tests, and you can try to run those tests, say, on the board itself. So the testing environment could be a RISC-V board, but the environment where you are building is not RISC-V. So it's about cross-compilation. Also, it could be possible to run some benchmarks. It might be about storage connected to a RISC-V board, and some plus it could be run something in memory. I mean RAM. Also, it might be possible, say, to use some to run something like some executables which are stored completely in memory, files in memory, and you can run some pure in-memory benchmarks to get some footprint estimations, calculations, and you can get some understanding on Rook's specific like functional internal stuff, which you know well, I guess. And you can get some like insights from that, and that could be done basically in memory. So this is one of the performance benchmarking option. One of the performance benchmarking options. So CI possible to deploy, build environments possible to deploy, plus you can combine any non-RISC-V like x86_64 and any ARM servers probably where you can cross-compile, and you can deploy like those testing images on say, and also any other on something you can run, use the board as an on-premise, and you can run any executables there on Linux. So I guess at least some suggestion. There is a host, so the host would be RISC-V, and you're having an account out there. You can run something with some root access, something non-root access, and you can run some specific executables doing performance benchmarkings, and you can collect all the data and all the reports. So it could be done. So servers could be operated remotely by hand, and also they might pick up some scheduled workloads, and probably it's possible to configure those workloads to actually so you can have time to prepare something what you are expecting to be to run on RISC-V server, and then you can experiment. It would just simply pick it up, and it will try to launch, and you get all the data from the output. I guess it could be also possible. So
Okay, maybe a couple of questions. Blaine had some questions. Blaine, do you want to ask those? Wrote them in the agenda.
Yeah. Okay, I'm off mute. I guess like my first question is like Rook is not just like a Go program. We also rely on Ceph. I didn't see any Ceph builds for RISC-V. It doesn't mean that someone couldn't build Ceph for RISC-V, but I like part of the complexity is this will be running Ceph on RISC-V, making sure that basically everything that goes into that Ceph container, including NFS Ganesha, I guess Rook doesn't make use of any of the iSCSI stuff that just kind of is present in that container. Can all build. Like it seems like Ubuntu has images that are built for RISC-V. I think Fedora as well. So like the OS itself is not the problem. I think it is whether we could actually get Ceph built, I think will be the most complicated part of this. I think Golang provides tooling for RISC-V. It sounds like Kubernetes has some, experiments for supporting RISC-V. I think Ceph really is the bottom line here, as far as can Rook run on RISC-V.
Right, because Rook's base image is on Ceph, and if there's no Ceph RISC-V image, then that's where we need to start before we can ever get to Rook.
I also I'm making the assumption we should really focus on 64-bit only. I think there are 32-bit RISC-V systems, but I assume that is those are pretty low powered systems. So at any rate, we would probably want to start with just RISC-V 64-bit as a starting point.
Okay, so I'm trying to, as far as I'm seeing what you're trying to view for us is that it's about 64-bit RISC-V boards, which they actually are. Plus, I don't think there are at least I haven't heard about any virtualization happening on non-64-bit boards. Also, plus resource constraints. I don't think 32-bit boards they don't have such some limitations on resources. So a 64-bit is not the only option, I guess. I actually got two small boards for RISC-V. It's definitely low memory support, but it's still, even if I would check a more modern options, it still would be 64-bit. So you are concerned about Ceph and about tests on RISC-V and generally using Ceph support on Linux. So if there is a RISC-V host machine, and we can try probably run some checkout is possible if it's possible to build Ceph and run tests for Ceph itself. as far as I'm understanding your concern. So you're more worried about file system supports and Linux for Linux, like kernel models for that, and some user space software for that matter, right?
I guess it's not specifically limited to file system. Ceph is the underlying, like Ceph provides the underlying like daemons and binaries that Rook uses to actually make storage possible. So if Ceph can't be compiled for RISC-V, then there's no way Rook can work with RISC-V, even if like Golang and Kubernetes all support it. And I think that's going to be very complicated. I don't know, it could be easy, but it has the potential to be very complicated because Ceph also includes lots of linked libraries and other kinds of things. Like there would have to be development libraries that exist for RISC-V for everything that Ceph has as a dependency. Like this, just building Ceph on RISC-V could take a dedicated team of engineers a significant amount of time to accomplish. And like
And we're not the
there-
right team to talk about that, really. We're on the
yeah,
Rook
definitely.
side, so we'd have to involve more Ceph core build engineers to figure that out.
Yeah, I assume like there's some precedent because people want to support like Unix or like BSD, and people want to support like PowerPC architectures. So it has been done to build Ceph for other architectures, but I don't know what kind of engineering resources it took to get those, and or how many resources it takes to maintain those.
Okay, thanks. So I think I have two language Golang specific questions. One is about using reflection and the reflect package, which is a question of some concern in sense of performance, and the story with the JSON-iterator dependency, which can be found, I guess, for Kubernetes. And I wanted to ask if there is any plans to investigate the performance with reflection regarding Rook, because I know that JSON-iterator have seems to have some dependency on alternatives. I think I even opened a GitHub issue in the past. So it was and it was about migrating to like maybe chickens for some alternative because Reflect 2 package, for instance, is not seem to be maintained. Despite it's supported by Kubernetes via JSON-iterator dependency, that means that it doesn't use the Reflect package from the main library, but it uses this alternative, and that alternative is not always compiled by an alternative compiler. For instance, it's okay for GCC Go, but it's not okay for Go LLV. And after investigation, it appeared that Ian Taylor proposed to like do some performance benchmarking and provide some patches to improve the main library package. Since if someone uses the reflection library for concrete needs, it makes sense to optimize some like the main library, not the and to avoid rewriting reflection API each time on each case. So there is no sense to generate alternative APIs. It makes sense to optimize the Reflect package, since it was a matter of some concern and replacement. So I wanted to ask about what does Rook still have on this dependency for reflect and where and how. So, and your vision maybe about that.
I think the best thing might be to do if you could open GitHub issues for these two to discuss there and point out specifically, you know, are you seeing an issue or is it just a suggestion or an investigation? Because I mean, as far as performance, I mean, Rook is not on the data path, and you know, Rook is the on the management plane. So just configuring Ceph basically. So performance is usually not really a question for Rook for getting high performance out of the reconciling engine, right? So if you see specific issues, I guess we'd like to look into that. And certainly if as packages are not supported anymore, we need to update the code to use the latest supported packages instead, like the Reflector 2, I think you said. So that makes sense. But I think, yeah, if you could, whatever details you have, if you could put them in GitHub issues, I think that would be most helpful. Or we can chat about it in Slack. Are you in the Rook Slack as well?
I used to be in the past, but I guess I can jump there. And probably what I was discussing about RISC-V, it's there is a Slack workspace for RISC-V community as well. So I guess there might be some sense to invite some people there to like perform some discussions on Slack in that workspace as well.
Sure. Yeah, those who get involved with getting that working could join that for sure. Okay. Yeah, and feel free always to bring up topics on Slack or GitHub. Since we only meet here every 2 weeks, it's just a long time to wait for things. So yeah, we can chat about all this offline too. Okay.
Okay.
I think is that all for now, or any other questions?
No, currently no any other questions so far.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for bringing those up, and we will look forward to the follow-up. All right, in conclusion then, so we'll plan on the 1.9 release next Tuesday, unless Quincy is delayed further than that, but hopefully it'll be out in the next few days this week. And then we'll get our release out on the 12th. And all right, thanks everyone. And hope you have a good day. Talk to you later.
Bye.